Tonight at 10, sweeping changes to the Prime Minister's top team after the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, resigns.
Cheering crowds greeted him here in Downing Street as he laid out the priority of his new government.
I invite you all to join this government of service in the mission of national renewal.
Some of the faces of Keir Starmer's top team arriving to begin work. We'll take a look at their immediate challenges. Earlier, Rishi Sunak was at Buckingham Palace offering his resignation and announcing he'll be stepping down as Conservative leader.
I am sorry. I have given this job my all. But you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change.
What next for the Tories? Liz Truss is one of many high-profile Conservatives to lose their seats. Joy for the Lib Dems with their best set of election results in a century. And Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, win 5 seats despite getting the 3rd most votes overall. Meanwhile, in Scotland, the SNP vote crumbled.
The election showed some marked differences in voting patterns across the UK. I'll be analysing the figures and showing how they affected the overall result.
On BBC London, with the MP for Holborn and St Pancras now installed at number 10, we'll have a roundup of all the biggest winners and losers in the capital.
A very good evening to you from a wet and soggy Downing Street, where Keir Starmer, the new Prime Minister, is spending his first night after a landslide victory for Labour in the general election. Now, it was a huge win for his party, taking more than 400 seats. Rishi Sunak has now stood down as leader of the Conservatives after his party won just 121 seats. And some of those losses went to the Liberal Democrats, who had their best set of results in a century, while Reform UK picked up 5 seats and the Greens 4. The SNP vote in Scotland collapsed. Standing just behind me before walking into number 10, Keir Starmer promised to show the country that politics can be a force for good, and said his mission would be national renewal. He also told the country his programme of change begins immediately, and today began appointing his top team. Well, we'll be hearing more about the new cabinet and take a look at what lies ahead for the Conservative Party. But we begin tonight with Chris Mason, our political editor, on a dramatic day and night in political history.
Just look at our new Prime Minister's face, undisguised joy. Sir Keir Starmer and his wife Victoria arrive in their new street to be greeted by flag-waving Labour activists.
It is 27 years since we have witnessed a moment like this. Labour winning from opposition and assuming power. Labour very good at losing elections. This is one that bucks the trend. They've won, and won big.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace, where I accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to form the next government of this great nation. I want to thank the outgoing Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. His achievement as the first British Asian Prime Minister of our country, the extra effort that will have required, should not be underestimated by anyone. But now our country has voted decisively for change, whether you voted Labour or not. In fact, especially if you did not, I say to you directly, my government will serve you.
But hang on, he admitted.
Changing a country is not like flicking a switch. The world is now a more volatile place. This will take a while. But have no doubt that the work of change begins immediately.
And he promised
to restore service and respect to politics, end the era of noisy performance, tread more lightly on your lives, and unite our country.
Jubilation, yes, but with terms and conditions. The slogan may have been change, but he admits it will take time.
Sir Keir Starmer entering 10 Downing Street as Prime Minister for the very first time.
And with that, the business of governing begins. Arriving this afternoon to join the Cabinet, the new Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, the first woman to be Chancellor ever, Rachel Reeves, and the new Foreign Secretary, David Lammy. All of this began to unfold at 10 o'clock last night.
Blimey, just take a look and take in those numbers.
A nocturnal political earthquake. Massive Labour gains in England, Scotland and Wales. Colossal Conservative losses. Just look at their faces. In Norfolk, a former Prime Minister became a former MP. The Conservative Party chairman Richard Holden had a nervous wait and won by just 20 votes. The former Cabinet Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg wasn't so lucky and lost.
Thank you very much to everybody and good night.
The Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey couldn't resist a spot of dad dancing to mark his party's leap forward to 71 MPs. The Scottish National Party lost 38 seats and is left with just 9. Reform UK got more votes than the Liberal Democrats but ended up with just 5 MPs. One of them, Nigel Farage, and the Green Party of England and Wales won 4 seats. Among their victors, co-leader Carla Denyer beating a Labour frontbencher in the process.
Bristol, you made history today.
Back in Westminster, it's just over 6 weeks since I last got soaked in Downing Street when the election campaign began.
Here it comes. It's going to be a busy morning for the lectern.
So there was a splash of déjà vu as well as rain there this morning as Rishi Sunak left.
To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss.
He offered these words about Keir Starmer.
Whatever our disagreements in this campaign, he is a decent, public-spirited man who I respect.
And these were his last public remarks in high office.
This is a difficult day, at the end of a number of difficult days. But I leave this job honoured to have been your Prime Minister. This is the best country in the world, and it is thanks entirely to you, the British people, the true source of all our achievements, our strengths, and our greatness. Thank you.
In truth, he'd tried everything to revive Conservative fortunes, but had failed, leading his party to catastrophic defeat.
Sir Keir Starmer, Your Majesty. Your Majesty.
And so, leading to this moment.
We're having to get to grips with everything.
As Keir Starmer gets used to regal small talk, and the country gets used to its 4th Prime Minister in under 2 years. Chris Mason, BBC News, Westminster.
More from Chris in a second or so, but Sir Keir Starmer set to work immediately, appointing a new cabinet, the ministers who will run government departments. Angela Rayner's been confirmed as Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. Rachel Reeves, as expected, becomes the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, the first woman in UK history to hold the post. David Lammy is the new Foreign Secretary, and Yvette Cooper has been appointed as the new Home Secretary. Her husband, Ed Balls, of course, was a minister when Labour were last in power. Well, Chris is here with me. A few more appointments in the last few hours, I hear. And what else has the new Prime Minister been up to?
Yeah, a couple more appointments to ministerial positions, and quite eye-catching appointments, actually, Clive. So James Timpson, he of the High Street Cobblers and Key Cutters, is becoming a prisons minister. And Sir Patrick Vallance, who you might recall from the pandemic, the former government chief scientific advisor, has been appointed as a science minister. They'll take seats in the House of Lords. Prime Minister tonight has also been doing the standard thing that a new Prime Minister tends to do in the first hours of office, which is a blitz of telephone calls to allies around the world. Amongst them, a conversation in the last couple of hours with President Biden, talking about the relationship between Washington and London, reflecting on the fact that they will see each other next week at a NATO Defence Alliance summit in Washington. Also conversations with the Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris. They're going to meet here in Downing Street in a couple of weeks' time. President Zelensky of Ukraine, the President of the European Commission, the Italian Prime Minister and the Canadian Prime Minister. And on top of that, speaking to the First Ministers of Wales and Scotland and the First and Deputy First Ministers of Northern Ireland. So a busy few hours for the new Prime Minister as he finds his way around the building behind us.
Yeah, hit the ground running. All right, Chris, we'll get another word from you a little bit later on. But Labour managed to win their landslide without a significant increase in their vote compared to the last election. And turnout across the country was around 60%, the lowest in 20 years. Rita Chakrabarti has been looking at all the numbers.
Let's take a look at turnout first. And despite some of the huge figures overnight, turnout was actually significantly down. Overall, across the UK, just 60% of voters came out to have their say. And as you can see, compared to 5 years ago, that's the dotted line there, the grey one, that is down 7.6%. And if you look back historically, it's much lower than it used to be in the 80s and in the 90s. So a landslide Labour victory, but the party's vote share tells a more nuanced story. So compared to 2019, it's up less than 2%. And the Lib Dems over here are up even less. But they've both achieved their huge successes because of the plummeting in the Conservative vote, down just shy of 20%. And let's not forget Reform, the major beneficiaries of that fall in terms of vote share. There they are, but not in terms of seats, and that's because of the first past the post system. So let's break down the vote share in terms of the nations. This is how England looked, with the Labour vote barely up by 1 percentage point and the Conservatives down 21%, doing desperately badly. But a different story for Reform and also actually for the Greens, who had a good night. Let's take a look now at Wales, where the Labour vote share again was notably down, but that didn't stop them from gaining 9 seats. Again, that's because of the electoral system and mainly because the Conservatives did so badly. Let's take a look at Scotland, where it is a completely different picture. A major surge by Labour, up 17%, and that's at huge cost to the SNP, down 15%, and they appear to have been severely damaged by recent events. In Northern Ireland, the main political parties aren't in play, but overall Sinn Féin have overtaken the DUP in terms of vote share and also in terms of seats, but they won't take them up at Westminster.
Rita there with one of the stories of the night, the low turnout. Well, everywhere you looked last night, there were senior Conservative figures losing their seats. Perhaps the most significant was the former Prime Minister Liz Truss, who lost her majority of more than 24,000 in what had been one of the safest Tory seats. Rishi Sunak said he'd heard the anger and disappointment of voters, and the inquest has already begun into why the Conservative vote collapsed. Here's Joe Pike.
So candidates, please, to join me on the stage.
It was a pre-dawn post-mortem.
As a party, the Conservatives must come back together, look deep in our political souls and ask some uncomfortable questions.
As one catastrophic Conservative campaign concluded, another battle began.
Do you plan to stand for leader, Kemi?
The search for a successor.
Is it time for a new job?
Former Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch is tipped to run, as is ex-Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick.
Congratulations, Robert. Good luck in your leadership bid.
which will no doubt be coming up soon. Other possibilities include centrist Tom Tugendhat and further to the right, 3 ex-Home Secretaries, James Cleverly,
well, good morning, everybody.
Priti Patel and Suella Braverman.
And we need to learn our lesson.
But only survivors can stand. And amongst the night's record 12 cabinet casualties,
the Conservative Party candidate, 13,715.
were likely leadership contenders Penny Mordaunt and Grant Shapps.
We've tried the patience of traditional Conservative voters with a propensity to create an endless political soap opera.
Among the 251 Tories dumped by voters, Liz Truss, who was slow hand-clapped for keeping her fellow candidates waiting.
We haven't delivered sufficiently on the policies people want.
But do you accept that first as a cabinet minister and then for a brief time as prime minister, you were part of the people in power who were overseeing those things not being delivered?
I agree I was part of that. That's absolutely true.
In an unexpected win, Jeremy Hunt held on. He moved out of number 11 Downing Street with his family hours after. Conservatives returning here know their party has lost voters in multiple directions, but it is one rival, Reform UK, which has caused particular problems. After decades of Tory splits on Europe, many had assumed that achieving Brexit would consign Nigel Farage to history. Instead, he'll be in Parliament, sitting a few metres away. The new leader will need to decide whether to bring him close or keep their distance. Rishi Sunak has resigned as PM, but remains Conservative leader for now.
Big boots to fill, Matt.
First elected just 9 years ago, he rose rapidly.
You will not face this alone.
Becoming a national name during the pandemic, but fined during Partygate. He resigned as Chancellor after tensions with Boris Johnson.
Your own economic advisor has said that that would lead to mortgage rates, interest rates going up.
Lost to Liz Truss in the leadership race, but ended up in office after her administration imploded. He'd claim his legacy is financial stability. Others would argue it's leading an election campaign of historically disastrous proportions, which has left his party now searching for their 5th leader in 5 years. Joe Pike, BBC News, Westminster.
The full extent there of the Tory rout. Well, the Liberal Democrats converted an energetic and memorable campaign into many new seats. Ed Davey focused resources on areas across the southwest of England held by the Conservatives. They also took the seats of the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson in Henley, David Cameron in Witney and Theresa May in Maidenhead, from where Hannah Miller reports.
A series of historic wins that felt as the Liberal Democrats won 71 seats, even more than they managed before going into coalition.
Our best results for over 100 years.
Ed Davey rebuilding the party to become the 3rd biggest in Parliament.
You know, trust is a very precious commodity. It's hard won. And sometimes you've lost it, you lose it. And you have to work very hard to win it back.
The party took a swathe of seats across the southwest, including Cheltenham, where they defeated Justice Secretary Alex Chalk, and Tunbridge Wells in Kent, which has been Conservative ever since its creation in 1974. There are 2 main factors in the Liberal Democrats' success: the crumbling of the Conservative vote in heartlands like here in Maidenhead, but also the party's own laser-like focus on places where it had previously come second. Their national vote share is barely changed compared to 2019, but the Liberal Democrats stacked up votes in key target areas. While people may have laughed at the stunts, behind the scenes there was a serious strategy. How long has this been in the making?
Well, we've been working at Maidenhead for a long time now. We took control of the council last year. We've been working since 2019 to really cement ourselves in the community so residents know that we are those local champions.
At the village hall, Kate told us why she supported the Lib Dems.
I used to vote Conservative and I'm just so disappointed really in them that it's time for change.
And Samira said it was her first time voting for them in a general election. Do you feel like the Conservatives lost here, or did the Liberal Democrats win?
I think Liberal Dem, they've won. Yeah. Most of us were looking forward for the Liberal Dem to do what they should do for the community.
While there's much to celebrate for the Lib Dems, they now have plenty to prove if they want their gains to be a spectacle that lasts for more than a moment. Hannah Miller, BBC News, Maidenhead.
Well, there were celebrations too for Reform UK winning 5 seats, with the party leader Nigel Farage entering the Commons as an MP on his 8th attempt. During a speech today where he was interrupted by hecklers, he said his party's success in taking votes from the Conservatives was just the first step, and now he'd be targeting Labour. Lucy Manning reports on the rise of Reform UK.
Hello, how are you?
Nigel Farage took himself off for a celebratory lunch in London, finally making it as an MP, and not his party's only one.
Do you feel a bit guilty that you've taken so many votes from the Tory party and let Labour have this landslide?
No, they would have lost anyway.
How should a bruised Tory party deal with you now you've got 4 MPs?
I don't really care. They can do what they like. They'll fight amongst themselves, as they've done for the last 4 years. I'm not bothered about them at all.
Successfully squeezing the Conservative support.
3rd in the share of vote, 3rd in the number of votes, but not matched by the number of seats, something Mr Farage has an issue with.
Reform UK's MPs arrived today at Westminster, but first had to deal with more than half a dozen hecklers.
Nigel, you're a racist. The party's filled with racists as well.
Well, this is good preparation for the House of Commons, I suppose, isn't it? We may be too few in number to necessarily be thought of as the opposition in the House of Commons, but let me promise you something. We are going to be the opposition around the country.
I am now going to declare the result.
Early morning before the sun rose in Clacton, the rise of Nigel Farage.
Farage Nigel Paul, Reform UK, 21,225.
The smile said it all. He's helped wipe out the Tories, but now he wants more.
We will now be targeting Labour votes. We're coming for Labour, be in no doubt about that. Believe me, folks, this is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you.
Earlier, he'd gathered with supporters at a restaurant by Clacton Pier and celebrated their first win, Lee Anderson in Ashfield. This evening, Nigel Farage took the call from his candidate in South Basildon and East Thurrock to say after 3 recounts, he'd won the seat.
Epic. Well, all I can tell you now, as an elected politician, is your life is ruined completely. Congratulations.
So 4 MPs become 5. Now Westminster must prepare for the arrival of Nigel Farage. One of his MPs said there will be fireworks. Lucy Manning, BBC News.
Despite the remarkable scale of Labour's victory, there were some setbacks for Keir Starmer. In Leicester South, the Labour frontbencher Jonathan Ashworth was defeated by a pro-Palestinian independent candidate. There were similar Labour losses in Dewsbury and Batley, and also in Blackburn.
Jeremy Corbyn, independent, 24,000.
And in Islington North, the former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn won as an independent after being banned from standing by Labour in the seat which he's held for more than 40 years. Well, the political landscape shifted in every part of the UK overnight. In a moment, we'll get the latest from Sarah Gervin in Northern Ireland, where Sinn Féin are now the largest party. Hal Griffiths has the story in Wales, where there are no Conservative MPs left. But we begin in Scotland on a dramatic night of losses for the SNP. James Cook has that story.
In dramatic, emphatic fashion, Scottish Labour is back. They swept the board here in Glasgow, a moment for which they've waited nearly a decade.
People across Glasgow, Scotland and the UK have voted for change.
As the clock ticked past midnight, it slowly dawned on the SNP this was not just a bad dream, it was a nightmare.
Look, there's no doubt this has been a very difficult election and the SNP has some serious questions to answer.
What are they?
Well, I think we need to reflect on the fact that during this campaign the biggest concern of voters was the cost of living crisis, and unfortunately when voters were concerned about the cost of living crisis, all they were hearing was discussion about luxury camper vans and iPads.
A reference to two very different investigations into SNP finances and an MSP's expenses. And for the leader, questions about his focus on independence.
I want to make it clear that I take full responsibility for the Scottish National Party campaign and the outcome that has been achieved. That is what leadership is about. You plan your campaign and you take responsibility for it when it's completed.
Dawn brought more than a splash of red to Clydeside. At the last election, Labour had just one Scottish MP. Now, we need a wide-angle lens to fit them all in.
Let me be really clear, the vote last night was not about independence. And I say directly to people who may have voted SNP in the past, may have voted independence in the past, may even think about voting independence at some point in the future. I want to deliver change for you. Now, I don't support independence, I don't support a referendum, but I recognise people demand change.
Labour's winning election message was that it could deliver change. Across the UK, it might have 5 years or so to prove to voters that it can deliver it. But here in Scotland, there's a more urgent deadline. The Scottish parliamentary elections are just 2 years away. The problem is it may need to win that election before it can even tackle some of the country's biggest concerns.
Educational attainment gap is widening, health outcomes are weak, child poverty is stubbornly high. All of these things show that we're not progressing as a society, and that's the job for the Labour Party now, to fix that.
The SNP had got used to winning. It's painfully obvious how much losing hurts. James Cook, BBC News, Glasgow.
A red letter day for Monmouth, now back in Labour's colours for the first time in almost 20 years. Its people persuaded just about by their message.
Well, I don't want to go with the political thing of we needed a change, but we needed a change.
Met up with family yesterday and they all had the same opinion. They may have voted Conservative in the past, but yesterday the three of us as groups voted Labour.
No wonder the party wanted to come here to celebrate, even if success depends on how you frame things. Its share of the vote in Wales was actually down, the number of Labour voters the lowest since 1935.
There are lots of lessons for us in the result, and the scale of the victory does give us a special responsibility. But I found on the doorstep that as well as a real thirst for change, there's an honesty about the length of time it'll take to put right the last 14 years.
It is the end of an era for the Conservatives here. Former Welsh secretaries all lost their seats in what was a total Tory wipeout.
People were telling us what they felt about some of the antics and shenanigans that had gone on over the last 5 years in Westminster, and that turned people off from voting Conservative.
So the tide has turned in Wales, and not just for the bigger parties. Look beneath the surface and you'll also see a swell of support for reform in Wales. Not enough to claim any MPs this time, but they will have an eye on the Senedd elections just around the corner.
Plaid too says it's heading in the right direction after claiming 4 MPs.
We're looking forward already to the 2026 Senedd election, when we are now clearly the strongest challengers to Labour.
Plenty of work ahead, but for now the Welsh map is mostly painted red. Hywel Griffith, BBC News.
With just 18 seats up for grabs in Northern Ireland, every win and every loss matters. By holding its 7 seats, Nationalist Sinn Féin has become Northern Ireland's biggest party at Westminster for the first time. It doesn't take its seats in the House of Commons because it doesn't think Westminster should make decisions for Northern Ireland. It wants a united Ireland.
I think the fact that we are now the largest party of local government, the largest party of the Assembly and the largest party of Westminster speaks to the fact that I think that it's time for change. It's time for us to be able to take control of our own fortunes here at home. So I look forward to the journey that we have ahead in terms of having a constitutional change conversation.
It was a bad night for the Democratic Unionist Party, which suffered significant losses. None bigger than in North Antrim, where Ian Paisley was unseated from a constituency his family has held for more than 50 years. The architect of that political earthquake was the leader of the traditional unionist voice, Jim Allister, the DUP's most ardent critic over its decision to go back into power sharing at Stormont. DUP leader Gavin Robinson held his seat, but warned about votes being split between different unionist parties.
I think in constituencies right across Northern Ireland you can see the consequences of divided unionism. I think you can see that there are constituencies within Northern Ireland for which there isn't the luxury in a first-past-the-post election to shop around.
The Alliance Party, which doesn't identify as unionist or nationalist, took the seat held by the DUP's former leader, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, since 1997. As the shockwaves of this election settle, there is much to consider. But with Sinn Féin in the top spot and the DUP bruised, calls for a conversation about an Irish unity referendum are likely to grow louder. Sarah Gervin, BBC News.
Well, as we've been hearing, Labour made gains right across the country, taking seats they'd never held before and winning back the so-called red wall of constituencies across the north and the Midlands that turned blue in 2019 but have historically voted Labour. Well, Ed Thomas has spent the day in Grimsby finding out how people there feel about Labour's message of change.
The red wall is being rebuilt.
Grimsby's gone red again.
Labour, get in.
Thank God. Let's hope they can save the NHS if nothing else.
But still.
It's been scandal after scandal after scandal. Who else could we vote for?
And Grimsby's challenges, deprivation, inequality, are now Labour's to solve.
30, 50 and 84.
But a win is a win.
10.
This is Leanne's place, a baby bank, food bank and subsidised bingo.
48.
She's seeing more and more families in need.
This country isn't the country that it used to be.
She voted Labour, but only just.
How committed are you to Labour?
I voted for him. I'm not particularly committed to him. It was a tactical vote to get the others out.
Simple as that?
Simple as that.
Labour's to-do list can be found here. The cost of living still hurts, and 1 in 4 commercial premises are empty in Grimsby. Many feel let down.
Every time there's a vote on or something, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to change this, they're going to change that. What's happening? Nothing.
Like elsewhere, more than 1 in 2 here who could vote didn't.
Did you vote?
No.
Why would you not vote?
I don't care.
I've been a Labour man all my life. Trade unionist, working class.
There's no point in me voting. This town's gone downhill.
I didn't vote because I'm very disillusioned. All right, thank you.
And Labour faces new pressures. Reform came second in Grimsby. Butchers Lee and his dad Gary have found a new political home.
I like Nigel Farage. I don't think the others have got the balls to do anything about what's happening in the country.
Your #1 issue this election?
I'd say it's immigration.
I think there'll be more and more people voting for reform. If nothing changes, that's what will happen, I think.
But change has come.
It's got to be better than it has been from a whole family. We have to now be hopeful going forward. Otherwise, what's the point?
Looking forward is Grace.
Stood tall, went in, voted for what I thought was right.
She's 18 and voted Labour in her first election.
I'm feeling very hopeful. I'm hoping that it's a new path, new direction. Hopefully it's going to be a bit better.
That hope is that the promises made are promises kept. Ed Thomas, BBC News, Grimsby.
The view from the northeast there. Well, Sir Keir Starmer has become the 7th Labour Prime Minister. His ascent to the top of politics began in 2015 when he was first elected to Parliament following a career in law. Vicky Young reports now on the rise of the new Prime Minister.
When you're named after the first leader of the Labour Party, maybe a political career is inevitable. But Keir Starmer didn't take a direct route to No.10. His story began in Surrey, where he lived with his parents, a nurse and a toolmaker, and his 3 siblings. He went to Reigate Grammar. When it became a private school, he stayed on a bursary. He was musical, playing the flute, piano and violin. He later gained law degrees from Leeds and Oxford universities and became a barrister specialising in human rights. In the 80s, he spoke about the laws restricting acid house parties.
The police must limit themselves to those powers and not go beyond it.
Friends from those days were among the crowd in Downing Street today. One recalls Keir Starmer's immense capacity for work and study.
What people don't see is, or are those quiet moments in private where he's incredibly engaging, incredibly fun. But when it comes to work, I think it's fair to say he takes it very, very seriously.
One way he's always relaxed is football. His passion for the game as player and Arsenal fan continues today.
I'm a massive football fan, and one of my boyhood memories is 5 o'clock sports reports. Remember that?
In 2008, he became Director of Public Prosecutions, overseeing high-profile cases like MPs' expenses. And then, having joined the Labour Party in his teens, came a relatively late entrance into politics, elected to the Commons at the age of 52.
Do you want to be Prime Minister?
I'm not going to fall into that.
What?
It's like asking me whether I want to play for England. My son said to me the other day, shall I play for Arsenal or Chelsea when I grow up? I mean, that kind of conversation, I think, is that helpful.
He was passionately opposed to Brexit and argued for a second referendum. When Jeremy Corbyn was re-elected as Labour leader, Keir Starmer took a job when many of his colleagues refused. But he later showed a ruthless streak when he suspended his predecessor from the party over anti-Semitism. He's spoken often of his admiration for the NHS, clapping for carers with his wife during COVID. But it was his mother's attitude to her lifelong illness that taught him a lesson for life. He recently recalled her bravery the day she had an operation to amputate her leg.
She just said to me, Keir, I hope they don't cut the wrong blooming leg off. A bit of me thinks if my mum can go into that operation with that frame of mind, I ought to be able to get up and do whatever it is I've got to do.
And that's the attitude his friends say he'll bring to the enormous task ahead of him now. Vicky Young, BBC News, Westminster.
So, what's in the new Prime Minister's in tray over the coming days? Well, this weekend he's expected to take more calls from world leaders, and he'll continue building his cabinet, appointing junior ministers to government departments. On Tuesday, the new Parliament will meet, with the first opportunity for Keir Starmer to speak at the dispatch box as Prime Minister. Then, on Wednesday and Thursday, he'll be propelled onto the world stage, flying to Washington for the NATO Leaders Summit, where he'll meet, among others, President Biden. He's already spoken to President Zelensky of Ukraine. But perhaps the most pressing priority for the Prime Minister is the economy. The new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, issued a damning assessment of the state of the UK's finances, saying in her words, there's not a huge amount of money. Faisal Islam has spent the day with Rachel Reeves.
In Halifax, a new solar-panelled bus terminal. If the new Chancellor's plans for a green economic revolution are delivered, this site will be repeated up and down the country. One local entrepreneur says speed is of the essence.
Rachel says that she has a plan and that plan needs to be implemented.
How much time has she got?
We've run out of time already, and that's the reality, isn't it, that there's businesses that are folding. Local authorities have gone bankrupt.
This afternoon at the Treasury, a glass ceiling in British economics broken at last.
It is also a huge privilege to be the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer. So every young woman and girl...
Earlier, in her seat in Leeds, the new Chancellor was candid to BBC News about her room for manoeuvre.
I know the scale of the challenge. There's not a huge amount of money there, and so what we need to do is unlock private sector investment.
Does this suggest that you're willing to see some political pain in order to get the growth the country needs?
We're willing to have that fight, because unless we can unlock that investment, unless we can reform our planning system to be able to do that, we're going to be stuck in this doom loop of high taxes, low growth and poor public services. We've got to break out of that doom loop.
With crumbling council finances, universities going bankrupt and infrastructure investment badly needed, the new Chancellor can see, even in her own backyard of West Yorkshire, the problems facing the economy. To change that, she says she has a plan, but with money scarce, painful political decisions are needed, and quickly. The new government thinks the UK can double onshore wind power, treble solar and quadruple offshore wind by the end of the decade.
What matters for green growth is there's £100 billion of capital, more than that, waiting to be deployed in the UK. That's been going abroad because we can't build stuff here. That means that not only do you not get the jobs in construction and actually creating this infrastructure, but we don't benefit from the cheap electricity it will bring as well. That's going to change.
In West Yorkshire and beyond, there are more basic challenges too, like getting the Transpennine trains to run on time or run at all. The new government has a mandate to get the economy back on track. How quickly can it deliver? Faisal Islam, BBC News.
Some of the big challenges ahead. Well, the sweep of electoral history hasn't been kind to Labour. The party is much more proficient at losing elections than winning them. It's a century since they first entered government. So how does this latest victory compare to other political landslides of the past? Here's Alan Little.
Only 2 elections in living memory have fundamentally reshaped British society. The first was the Labour landslide of 1945.
Put Labour in! Vote Conservative! Socialism must win!
It brought swathes of the economy into public ownership: coal, steel, shipbuilding. It vastly extended the welfare state. It built millions of council houses. It founded the National Health Service. In this new society, levels of social and economic inequality fell dramatically. The Conservatives came to accept much of this as a new reality, and a cross-party consensus formed that lasted nearly 40 years. The second transformational election was Mrs. Thatcher's victory in 1979. She too would use her mandate to build a new kind of Britain. The heavy industries were swept away to be replaced by all of this, an economy based on services and especially finance. Council houses were sold off, and so were the public utilities. The market, not the state, would propel this new Britain. Under Tony Blair, New Labour came to accept much of this new reality, and a second cross-party consensus emerged. That too has lasted 4 decades. Is yesterday's Labour victory comparable to those 2 pivotal moments? Does it have the potential to transform Britain?
Keir Starmer has won a very big majority, but the country faces very big problems. So not only is he going to have to rebuild the economy and restore our public services, but actually rebuild trust and confidence in our democracy.
Everybody has just felt ground down by the chaos, really, and the disreputableness of the government. And I think it already feels that you can breathe more easily with this new team. People are entitled to have a democracy they can be proud of. They haven't had that for a long time.
But this election may yet prove historic for what it says not so much about Labour, but about what has happened to the Conservatives. The Conservative Party has been the most electorally successful force in British politics for 200 years, and they've enjoyed that success from the pragmatic centre-right of the political spectrum. Now there could well be a gap where the centre-right used to be. When you look at today's Conservative Party, do you recognise it as something that you once belonged to?
I think that the Conservative Party has drifted towards becoming a sort of narrow-minded, nationalist, populist party, and a Tommy Robinson in a cravat. So it's a terrible prospect, and I hope there'll be enough people in the Conservative Party who'll stand out against it.
Where is the right of centre in the British political spectrum now?
Well, it's been shredded, and the idea that the Bravermans of this world and Priti Patel and others represent true conservatism is historical and practical and present-day bilge.
Not long ago, it was considered impossible for Labour to come back from the crushing defeat it suffered in 2019 in the space of a single parliament. But voters are much more willing to switch party allegiances now. The electorate is probably more volatile than it's been at any time in the democratic era. For these are days of a deep public disaffection with politics. Labour now has 5 years, but by the next election, the challenge may come from a radical new right-wing force that will seek to thrive on that disaffection. Alan Little, BBC News, Westminster.
Let's get a final word from Chris. It was bucketing it down when this election was called. Yeah. Now it's over, it's bucketing it down again. Where do the Conservatives go from here? Rishi Sunak says he's going to stay on until a new leader is found.
Yeah, so as we're hearing from Alan there, the Conservatives are the Formula One car of British politics in this British Grand Prix weekend. And yet that car tonight is up on bricks, the wheels have been nicked, and the owner's thinking, you know, how do we ever get it going again? That's where they find themselves. They have been shriveled by what has happened. And so a debate is already starting about how they try and revive themselves. And then there's the question about the role Rishi Sunak plays in that. At what point does he say he will go? Does he delay his departure to allow a discussion to start, or does that discussion have to start very quickly if he stands down very quickly? The Conservative Party faces some very, very big questions. Yes, about its future, but how in the short term it works its way towards a new leader.
OK, well, that's the Tories. What about Labour? Just put into context the scale of this victory.
It's huge. Again, as Alan was reflecting, we've only had 4 occasions in the last 45 years where power has shifted from Labour to Conservative or Conservative to Labour. 1979, 1997, 2010 and now 2024. Now, what's curious about this particular election is the scale of Keir Starmer's success in terms of winning seats, his majority, and yet the share of the vote that Labour managed is actually pretty limited, the smallest share of the vote for a single party of government in many, many years. So critics will say it is broad, but it's not particularly deep. And then there's the scale of the challenges that Keir Starmer will face, just as Rishi Sunak faced. And we know all of those, don't we? Whether it's the NHS, the tax burden, the public finances, the international picture. That is huge. That's why he wants to be seen to be cracking on straight away with that cabinet meeting happening here tomorrow morning.
All right. Chris Mason, our political editor, many thanks. Well, we're going to look back at some of the most memorable moments of the last 24 hours in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the weather with Chris Fawkes. And I know what you're going to say, Chris.
Yeah, is it raining there, Clive? Yeah, you can just hear it coming down, can't you, on the umbrellas? And actually, the first signs of that rain was this cloud you can see coming into Falmouth towards the end of the afternoon. Since then, it's a developing area of low pressure that started to form right over the top of the UK. Yes, heavy rain across the southeast, really heavy downpours for Devon and Cornwall. Showers pretty widespread in Northern Ireland and Scotland. And as this low pressure continues to form over the coming hours, it will turn quite windy as well. So overnight, all in all, it does look pretty wet with some heavy bursts of rain around. The winds picking up, particularly across southern parts of England and Wales. Perhaps some clearer spells hanging around through the central lowlands, southern Scotland, the far north of England. But otherwise, yeah, you probably will see some rain at some point over the next few hours. And that rain's still with us into tomorrow morning. These bands of heavy rain pushing eastwards with time. The afternoon, it turns a bit brighter, but there'll be a mixture of sunshine and showers. And that's true as well for Northern Ireland and indeed Scotland as well. Gusty winds, gusts of around 30 odd miles an hour for England and Wales, so quite a blowy kind of afternoon. And temperatures for most of us around 16 to 19, but look at that, just 12 across parts of northeast Scotland where it'll feel particularly cool. Sunday is the better of the 2 days of the weekend, but it's all relative. After a dry sunny start, we still get showers forming, and those showers are likely to be quite widespread, heavy and thundery in nature. Temperatures, well, London should be around 24 for an average at this time of the year. 18, yeah, it's another coolish July day, but it'll still feel okay in any sunshine. A similar weather pattern greets us into Monday and Tuesday. Low pressure loitering and moving across the UK, and so there's no real end in sight to this rather changeable spell of coolish July weather. So, Clive, you got more rain to look forward to.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you for that. And that's it from Downing Street on a momentous day in British politics. We're going to leave you now with some of the sights and sounds of the last 24 hours as Labour achieved its landslide victory. Have a very good night.
We did it!
This is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you.
I've called Sir Keir Starmer to congratulate him.
It's clearly a terrible night for Conservatives.
Sir Keir Starmer, Your Majesty. Your Majesty.
Thanks, Riz, and welcome to BBC London. Good evening, I'm Alice Bandukravi. Millions of journeys will need to be rerouted or cancelled as a result of a tube strike starting on Sunday. Members of the RMT union will walk out for 5 days. Separately, the Docklands Light Railway will also shut down for 2 days. Tom Edwards reports.
This is what commuters can expect next week, disruption from Sunday to Friday morning. This dispute is about pay, but crucially a demand for a 32-hour week. Commuters in Vauxhall are preparing for a tough few days.
Getting to my work will be like impossible. So I'm not sure. I heard of the strike, but I don't know what people are going to do.
If they could just leave the strike, it is going to affect me and it's going to affect everybody as well. So I feel like they should just compromise.
They want a 32-hour week.
That would be nice.
What do you make of that?
I think it's a bit ridiculous, really. How difficult can their jobs be that they need a 32-hour week when the rest of us have to work 37 and a half, 40, even more?
At this floating venue, the Thamesis Dock, they have bookings every day next week.
For hospitality, it's going to impact us a massive way. September, all the kids are now going back to school. All the companies are starting to have their end of summer parties. We're booked every day next week, and so for us, we're kind of just hoping that all those events go through. But from past history, we know many cancel, so we are genuinely concerned.
There will be little or no tube from Sunday through to Friday morning as tube workers walk out. There will also be no service on the DLR on Tuesday and Thursday. TfL offered staff a 3.4% pay rise. Last year, the Mayor intervened with £30 million in extra funding. So far, though, there's been nothing from City Hall, and talks didn't get far.
We've made it very clear that we cannot reduce contractual hours. A 32-hour week is absolutely unaffordable, but even a small drop in contractual hours would bring huge cost to TfL. And it's very, very important that we're able to invest our operational budgets in improving services to London. We've made a fair and affordable offer to the RMT, and we'd urge them to put it to their members so they can have a say.
The senior directors have had up to 22% pay rises this year alone. And what our members are saying is that they just want a little bit of that recognised. They want some promises that have been made in previous pay rounds to be honoured. And we want a change in direction so as we can start to move towards, and this is important, move towards a 32-hour, 4-day week. We are not expecting to deliver that in one go, and we've made that quite clear to London Underground. We just want to see some progress.
A week of disruption for the capital and an abrupt end to summer. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
And we'd like to know your thoughts about the tube strike. Email us at hellobbclondon@bbc.co.uk. Now, it's been revealed that David Bowie had begun writing a musical about 18th century London when he died from cancer in 2016. His notes were discovered locked away in his study, as Mark Savage reports.
When David Bowie died in 2016, his parting gift was Black Star, an album shaped by his cancer diagnosis and an acceptance of mortality. But these notes, discovered locked in his study, reveal he was working on another project, a musical set in 18th century London. The musical was in its earliest stages. David Bowie had yet to decide on a plot, and there were certainly no new songs. But the notes he left behind developed some major themes. They were handwritten and pinned to the wall so he could play with the musical structure. And they show he was interested in justice. Figures like blind John Fielding, who was said to be able to recognise more than 3,000 criminals just by the sound of their voice. He wanted a character to be attacked by a notorious gang of aristocrats who terrorised London in 1712. He was also interested in the development of satire and the work of painter William Hogarth. And it seems he was planning to attract an adult audience.
Is there life on Mars?
It's a departure from the music he was known for, but maybe that shouldn't come as a surprise.
He spread the net really wide, and he kept going. He didn't rest on his laurels. He was continuously finding ways to be creative in new ways, and he was continuously curious throughout his life.
The notes for this unfinished musical have been preserved as part of the David Bowie archive, which contains more than 90,000 objects, from stage costumes to handwritten set lists. It will go on display at the V&A in East London from the 13th of September. Mark Savage, BBC News.
OK, weather now with Stav.
Good evening to you. It was a decent day today. We saw a good deal of sunshine around. We could see even more sunshine this weekend. It'll start to feel a bit warmer as well, but it will be pretty windy. Overnight, though, the winds will be light, clear skies, and it's going to be another cool one like it was the previous night, with temperatures outside the M25 dipping down into single digits. We could see a little bit of mist and fog, but that'll very quickly lift tomorrow. Lots of sunshine for Saturday morning. The wind starting to pick up from the southeast. Could see a bit of high cloud that will make the sunshine hazy in places. Otherwise, it's going to be a fine afternoon. Temperatures 22 or 23 degrees. It's warmer still on Sunday, but quite windy. Temperatures could be close to the mid-20s. And then by the middle of the new week, it starts to turn more unsettled once again. Take care.
And that's all from the Late team. From all of us here, whatever you're doing, do have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.